Okay, so I finally have this Companion and Streamdeck Control functioning how I really want it to. So I figured I'd give a rundown of how I did it. It was a little involved. So I just wanted to give a quick rundown of how it's functioning. So you can see we have a SQ5 from Allen & Heath, and I built a 3D printed mount that magnets up top. Here it's got a Streamdeck Mini inside of it. And next to the SQ5, we have Wave's SuperRack Performer running. Don't have a Wave server. This is simply running on an M2 Mac Mini. It's got 32 gigs of RAM, I believe, and it's like the upper, maybe the medium level, mid-level Mac Mini with a terabyte of storage. It handles, it's currently running, I think, about 20 channels worth of Waves processing, and not even light processing. It's pretty substantial. And you can see up here running at 48 kilohertz sample rate, 32-bit buffer, which is pretty dang quick, and it's hardly using any CPU usage. Even during a show running, I mean, it's still sitting way below that yellow line there. So runs real solid. First, let me describe how everything's connected, kind of. So Allen & Heath SQ5 is running Dante. It also has physical inputs from Stage. It is also networked via RTMP, or TCP/IP MIDI. So the network port MIDI control. And that is how we're getting control over SQ5 for several different things, including scene changes. I have a controller in the lobby that controls the lobby volume for the lobby matrix. So there is MIDI control flowing to this, but it's actually, I'm going to move away from using that companion module because it's no longer supported and updated, which makes me sad, but that's okay. That's just open source things. If you're interested in the plans for that, let me know. I can explain that another time. But SQ5, Dante, physical inputs. Dante flows into our Wave setup. We've got about 20-ish, between 20 and 25 channels worth of Waves processing running, which brings it back here and distributes from the console out to its endpoints. We've got a house mix, a distributed audio mix for the campus, and then we also have a broadcast mix. I also have a comms mix coming in, which gets fed into kind of a utility, IEM utility is what we call it. Has talkbacks from front of house, stage, and cues from tracks that all go in there. Connecting everything MIDI-wise, we were using the Apple's stock audio MIDI kind of driver and their network setup. It is super good. Honestly, used it for years. It is pretty dang robust if you've got a decent network setup. But what I ran into was having volunteers in place and getting them to feel confident about coming in here, pulling up the network setup, finding the right session, joining that session, and making sure everyone was participating in that session. As you may know, it is a process to get that up and running. And then even when you've got the proper participants, you then need to quit out of your host programs, whether it's Pro Presenter or SuperRack, and reopen them so that they grab the right virtual MIDI ports. So what we moved to was Bome Midi Network. It's been actually phenomenal. I think it's a couple $100 for a five license. You can license 5 computers with it, and then that, I believe that price also includes their unlimited virtual MIDI ports, which I'll get into later. I'm just starting to explore how powerful that is. But what's great about Bome is that it runs in the background basically, and it auto connects. You can set to auto connect and auto accept from machine to machine. It's been a lifesaver. So I've loved that solution. I encourage you to check it out. Bome Network Control. It's been awesome. We have 3 machines running locally here in front of house. So I've got 2 Mac Minis in the Sonic Rack Mac Mini. And then I have a real old, I think it's like a 2012 or 2013 Mac Mini running back here behind this blank plate. And that's our companion, I'll call it our companion host or companion server. The only thing it runs, we can pull it up here, I'll show you. Connect to it. So there are only a few things that this is running. This is running a Bome setup, so we can connect to it via Bome. It can pass MIDI around. It's running the Companion. It's hosting the Companion. And then it also runs some basic MIDI translation stuff. So it can translate MIDI from one machine to the next machine, can act as a middleman. I've really just found it necessary for handing off MIDI between Companion, the console, and our Waves machine. I could not find a way to keep the networked MIDI stuff just between the console and the Waves machine. And there was some other feedbacks I wanted to run that I just couldn't get running. So we're using this machine kind of as the handoff point, and then also to run Companion. It is a little sketchy because I'm running a patcher to get it updated to a version, what the OS is like 10.15, I think. But it's not technically supposed to be running. Yeah, Mac Mini Server 2010. Just so you know I'm not lying. There you go. Version 10.15. It's been running like this for about a year and a half now. It's been fine. So I'm happy with that setup. Okay, so that's how everything is connected in front of house. I hope that makes sense. If there's questions, ask below. I'm going to try and keep moving through this because it is getting long. So that's how our computers are communicating. The thing tying everything together is Companion. I love Companion. I'm a big proponent for open source. If you have some technical ability, then I encourage you to look into open source solutions, and Companion's been one that's huge for us. I wanted to work in automating tuning, vocal tuning to there, but I needed a few safeguards in place. And then in this venue specifically, we also have our sound operator running lighting because it is very simple, just a single cue per song. So let me give you the rundown. What we're doing is we're using Companion to control three things from this station specifically. Four things. So we've got power for the SQ5. I'll pull that up. You can see we have audio power over the top here. So we've got on, off, and then a power state basically. On the bottom, I've got power for the LEDs running underneath the counter. Those are just running WLED. There's some WS2812s. They can do much more than what they're doing there, but it's what I had in the closet, so it works just fine. Running on an ESP32, super simple setup. If you're interested, Chris Marr on YouTube has some phenomenal walkthroughs on WLED and how to get it up and running. And then integrating with Companion is easy. There's a Companion module for it. It's super simple as long as you have the IP of that controller. So that's LED control there. You can see we have console control. Set this up to operate as you see. So on button kicks it on, obviously. Off button, I didn't want to direct power off, so I actually have a second step that asks me to hold to confirm. Only after holding for a second and a half will it shut the console off. And this is actually being done by a smart plug. I know it's not necessarily ideal, and you would hope to have a power sequencer in your system, but this was the cheapest way that I could get it running and actually stay within budget. The power plug is rated for the amount of power draw coming off the console. It's a digital console, so it's really not drawing a ton. And it works fine. It's been running like this for 6 months. I've had no issues. So you see power is off. It kicks this center button down to red, tells you power is off. You can hit on, kicks it to green. See the console is booting up now. Cool. If we go back to the main page of control, the other three things that are being controlled here is going to be a Spotify play and pause button. This button specifically, it will play the track and then fade it up at the Spotify level. That way my operators can actually just keep the background music or our CG1 audio the same, and all they have to do is just hit play and it'll play the track and start fading it, and you'll see it's starting to fade in by itself. Same for the fade out, which is nice. When our countdown hits, they can hit the pause, it slowly fades it out and then pauses the track. I found that to be super useful. Also simple feedback to switch the background to green. I felt like that's the most clear for them to understand. This button specifically is linked over here to this button, which runs at our CG1 position. He's got more controls as well for the Spotify portion. Jeez, so blown out, you can't see. So you can see it's got a couple playlists set up, skip button. It's also got a feedback to show us what exactly is playing. I guess I'll cover this station real quick. So we run Lightkey Control for our lighting. So you can see we've got dedicated Lightkey Control. This will basically just pull up specific scenes via OSC. It's great. And then down here is our Pro Presenter control. So we got a pre-service loop that runs. This triggers our lower thirds and this clears out our lower thirds. When you walk in, most of our surfaces will automatically go to this guy. You've got two selections, Sunday or Life Group, and those will actually trigger a system boot for a full system setup. So if it's Sunday, it's going to start everything up for me. If it's Life Group, it'll start up basically just audio and video, audio and CG, I should say, so that our video Life Groups can run their stuff. It'll also kick on, basically just unmute a single microphone and bring up background music, so they're ready to go with two channels on the console. They just have to, you know, have your host microphone and your CG1 audio kind of thing going. Try to simplify it for them. Okay, so that's that. Sorry, I keep getting distracted. I'm all over the place. That's that guy. Coming back over here, let's continue with the thought of lighting. So they have some basic lighting control over there. Our audio position runs lighting alongside audio. So I wanted to give them the option of doing it from here instead of having to come over to the host computer for lighting and do it all there. You can see it's currently not pulled up. If I hold down either one of the lighting buttons, it will, first of all, pull up the proper playlist for Sunday. Sorry, pull up lighting for you. So you can see it pulled up our Sunday playlist, and it also started playing that first cue. And then these are just simple go next and go back buttons. And we run really simple lighting here, single cue per song. So this fits us really well right now. I think in the future it'll expand, and that's cool. We can work with that, but for now this is pretty phenomenal. So let's see, there's two pages that we're using inside Lightkey. So we've got our live Sunday service page. And then we also have a control panel, and this is kind of what other groups that are using the space are using because it's just simple. But this also makes it, opens it up for me to program different controllers around the facility to control just the control panel, and then one specific panel, being this one, to control the Sunday lighting. What that means is, for instance, we run a companion emulator on our phones for like system control around the campus. That has control panel level control over the lighting. That means during the week, we can, via our phones, just hop on and click the lights on and off, no problem, because this just stays running 24/7. But on Sundays, I didn't want this position to be able to goof with lighting. I didn't want our video position to goof with lighting. I didn't want anyone with the app to be able to, or the emulator to be able to goof with lighting. So I built it in a separate playlist. That's why when you hold here, it pulls up, it'll pull up that playlist. Once it's in this playlist, it actually locks out the control panel access. So you can see we're in the Sunday playlist right now. If I come over here and I try to hit the walk-in button or the all-on button or anything like that, it's not going to work. Right now, Lightkey is only looking for, I believe it's program change commands, or maybe control change, that are saying either send me to a different page or tell me to go forward or go back on this page specifically. I think it's great. It helps with people not fat fingering and triggering lighting in the middle of service, which is great. So yeah, this ends up just being simple, go forward, go back. No feedback was needed. I didn't feel any feedback necessary for these. The most intricate thing I did was just a long press to send it back over to the control panel side. And when it goes to control, it triggers the walk-in because you still want the lights on usually when that happens. Okay, going on 13 minutes. Holy cow, here we go. We're gonna get into it now. Waves control has been the bane of my existence. And for some, it probably sounds silly. For me, figuring this out was a pain in the butt. I came down to, there's two separate control spots, okay? My Trax computer will always send program change to change the keys of the auto tune. And then I also wanted them to have my operators to have physical control to both see what key they're in and also to shut off the tuning if it was needed. So you can see we've got off button, and the key below it shows the current key. The way this is working, I've got program changes coming from here. So at the beginning of each song in our tracks, whether we're running Ableton or multi-tracks, whatever it is, we'll have a program change that sends. So you can see this little red dot sends a program change. Those program changes trigger scenes, which recall keys. So this is recalling the key of A. Now, Waves is set up to both receive a dedicated input from Companion. It's receiving from Trax as well, but it's also going to pass through any MIDI it receives back to Companion. This is important because I wanted to get the feedback into Companion, but there isn't a Waves module in Companion, so we used MIDI to do that. So when my Trax machine sends a program change to go to the key of A, it hits here, pulls at the key of A. It then sends that same MIDI cue over to Companion. And I'll pull up our Companion instance, and you can see, yeah, there's a lot of stuff not running at the moment, but in our triggers, you can see my keys that I built out here. Triggers run, right? So there's supposed to be tune trigger, but that's ton trigger. That's fun. So the key of A, for instance, what it's doing is on a condition becoming true, the conditions it's looking for are 1, to receive any kind of MIDI message. And then to further parse that out, it's going to ask for the program change on channel 1 of the number 7, because that's the program number that is related to the key of A. When it does that, it simply changes the button text to the key of A for that specific button. And that's it. So that's how we're getting that feedback there. When I describe it like that, man, it sounds simple, but what a pain in the butt. It took forever to figure that out. I think figuring out that Waves will let me pass through MIDI was kind of the catalyst in being able to actually get it running. If we weren't going to do that, it was going to rely on sending 2 MIDI cues from Trax every time, but I don't like the thought of that. I don't think it's the most reliable. Being able to send 1 command cue and have everything respond to that 1 cue, I feel like just makes so much more sense to me. I had a really good example of why that wouldn't work, and I can't remember it right now because I've been talking. Hey guys, it's me again about 10 minutes later. The circumstance I was thinking of was, what if, for instance, we use 2 MIDI cues, one of those MIDI cues does make it to its final destination, and it changes the key in Waves, but the second becomes disconnected and it doesn't represent that change in front of house. Or vice versa, let's say front of house is, the control panel is showing that it's in the key of A, but that MIDI cue actually didn't make it to Waves to make that change. I wanted what was being shown here in front of house to be reliant on the changes that were actively being made in Waves. I didn't want those two to be separate communications because I feel like that's quite a bit more unreliable. So hopefully that clears it up. Back to it. So that's how that's running. It's there. Simple off button, which really just sends a program change to recall the off preset. So you can see I hit that, changes the background to red so we know that tune is off, and the preset, or the scene that it recalls, is off. That's that, man. That's pretty much the whole rundown of how this surface is functioning. I've got there's about 5 other surfaces that are running. If you're interested in how those are running, I'd be happy to make some videos on those in the creative programming I've used to kind of get around some issues. There is one specifically I probably will make a video about. If you're interested, let me know, but it's going to be the video control stuff. We're running a couple of DJI Ronins as our quote-unquote cam ops or operated cameras. And those guys are actually fully controlled via Raven Eyes and Companion. So they are auto motion tracking cameras for our Cam 1, Cam 2 setup. But we can also input control stuff via Companion right here. This one isn't as pretty looking yet, but Companion, and I also have an Xbox controller here that my camera ops to use to control. If you're interested in that, let me know. Be happy to give a rundown on that. And if I missed anything, if anything wasn't clear, let me know. I just want to start documenting all this stuff. There's a lot of work that's gone into getting it stable, and I'd love to be able to document that as we plan to expand and redo this this venue. Just kind of want to get a nice picture of where it is now. So if anything from that situation was unclear, let me know. I'd be happy to fill you in a little bit more if you have questions. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, like it, let me know in the comments if you saw some programming that you haven't seen before, or if you have a better solution for any of this, let me know. I'm open to that. So thanks, fam. Talk to you soon.